Hey guys, welcome to One Wayfinder as I continue to try to Hulk smash my way through fears and limiting beliefs to continued healing and continuously moving towards my authentic self. Today, I want to chat with you a little bit about my 20 years of being married to a narcissist. It's crazy how this journey actually and reflecting on some of these things gives me the opportunity to put together pieces, even when I come on to do one of these, tape one of these. It seems like different puzzle pieces are coming together, which I think is also facilitating healing. Speaking your truth, I feel like has become healing to me. So I'm increasingly sort of even excited to come and share some of this stuff with you for whomever may run across my videos and hopefully feels inspired to start their journey too. I'm one wayfinder, and you can be one wayfinder too. There was a period in my life where, in my early 20s, where I started doing affirmations because I felt like I had been in relationships that were not nurturing to me. So I started saying I deserve to be loved in a nurturing way over and over, started my day with that, ended my day with that. And so when I met, I'm going to call him a narc because I have a lisp. So saying narcissist multiple times just probably won't work out. So I'll just call him my narc. When I met my narc, I thought I hit K he was such a great listener. He was charismatic. He was so funny. And he was just seemed to be very nurturing, very much cared about how I felt and what was going on with me. It was really, at the time, it felt like everything that I had been sort of believing that I deserved. We got married pretty quickly. I would say by most people's standards, it would be pretty quickly, like a year after meeting. And we really started off as friends first, but um, so but that's pretty quick still. But it all seemed right. It all seemed to make sense. But as soon as we got married, it was like the switch got flipped, and all of a sudden, I was seeing different things about this person that I had really only seen maybe possibly glimpses of before, but that were sort of mild compared to what was now coming out. For instance, anger, rage, some of those messages of me not being good enough or not doing enough for him. And that all was an incredible shock to me, of course, because I had fallen in love with someone who apparently was wearing a mask. So now I'm married to this person who has taken the mask off, has no problem taking the mask off, and I'm dumbfounded and shocked. But yet, living this place of we can work through anything, we're it's all going to be fine. All we have to do is communicate and everything will work out. We're in love. Love can conquer all. And so that was my mindset. And that was my mindset. Um, for a long time. But one of the things that he said to me, I mean, he started to say things to me that really made me feel very unworthy. And one of those things was immediately as well. One of those things was that because I brought two kids into the relationship, he told me that he only married me because he had fallen in love with the kids. Different messages like that, but it was bad enough. It was messages of I married you, but I don't love you. And these sorts of things kept going and going, and I just felt like I was like in this industrial size washing machine. Um, and I could not make heads or tails of it. At one point, I had been in the hospital for 10 days. I had surgery and I had had complications. I lost 20 pounds. I was pretty emaciated. I had not been that weight since probably even before I was a teenager. And, but what had happened while I was in the hospital, let's just say, for the sake of trying to protect innocent people here, there were some things that happened that that felt so egregious to me, and were also incredibly heartbreaking because I was not in a situation to help and not in a situation to protect. And I was it was just a very difficult situation. So it had to be maybe 2 or 3 days after I was out of the hospital. And I decided to finally make a stand and take a stand within my relationship and do something that was absolutely and undeniably the opposite of what he wanted to have done. It related to one of our children. And I was absolutely there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that the decision I was making, which was in some ways heartbreaking for me because it meant that it just meant a lot of things. I'll just leave it there. But it was to protect, to be protective. And so I can only say that the if you want to see like a narc on steroids, stand up to them. This is the reason why people get so beat down, because they get glimpses or they stand up and they see that they're going to be hammered and hammered and hammered and everything goes on blast. And then you begin to feel like, well, if I just stay quiet, we can keep the peace. We have a family. I'm not going to ruffle the feathers. It's not worth it. And over that time, you do begin to lose yourself. You begin to lose your voice and you begin to feel very uncertain about whether your feelings and the different things that you're feeling and thinking have any worth whatsoever. So now his emotions, being a narc on steroids, is like just probably the one of the most hellish situations for I'm sure other people who either are or were dealing with narcissists can share with you that it's extremely difficult. One of the things that went on steroids was the push. I always called it the push pull. I think there's a clinical term for this. I don't know what it is, but the push pull to me was when I would start to pull back emotionally from the relationship, he would come forward and love bomb me. And then when I thought we had this loving relationship, I would come forward embracing that love, and bam, it was like getting slammed to the concrete because it was a complete disregard. It was I think they call it it's something about like throwing out the trash, like discard. He would completely discard me and my emotions and act like he didn't want me anymore, or he didn't want this marriage anymore. He was only in it because of the kids. But then he would, push me away. And when he realized, like, okay, she's rock bottom, he would start to love bomb again and like suck me back in. And so it's this constant like push pull and just extremely wearing on your person, on your being. Another thing that I think is well known that narcs do is gaslighting. And for people who aren't clear on what that is, it's like I'll give a general, I'm not a therapist or anything. But it's when you actually speak your truth and or say something that happened the way that you perceive that it happened. The person gaslighting you will call you crazy, even if they know that what you're saying is the truth. They will flat out deny that you have brought forth a truth at all. And they will make you feel like you're crazy. You do begin to question yourself. You do begin to think, am I crazy? Is this possible? Should I be going to get a diagnosis? Um, what's going on here? So you get hammered in that way and you start to question even your mental health. And one of the most sinister components that I dealt with was the seeming delight that he had for causing me pain. He, I began to see him, I began to see that he would actually smile and get like a little like pep in his step whenever he was causing me pain. It would definitely give him pleasure, which is, I don't know if you would call that sadistic. Sociopathic, is that totally narcissistic plus? I'm not sure, but it was a very distinct component to my particular experience within my marriage. And ultimately, the thing that was like a running theme during the course of the entire marriage was that I could never do enough and everything was always my fault. It was never enough. Even if I tried to do we have, a conversation. If you only did this, it would relieve my stress or it would make me feel better about our relationship, whatever it was like I would do those things and then there was always like this other, it's like the threshold, the bar was always getting raised and I could never actually get there. It was just this constant having to try um to get there to make him happy. And I realized that that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to make him happy. But the absolute most sinister part of my situation was the things that he would do to me behind closed doors or that people wouldn't see or that people wouldn't see as a trend. I'll give examples um, that only I could see. So it was like another, yeah, as they say, like death by a thousand swords. I would say he was using the same sword or death by a thousand cuts. So it was just there was this barrage, really, of endless, um, just waiting for the next cut to happen, ultimately. These are just some examples, and you would think the other thing about some of these examples is that there's a level of plausible deniability with them, meaning that, so an example, I used to love having flower gardens. And I noticed that when we maybe were in disagreements about something, that he would mow the lawn, purposely having the grass clippings go into the gardens. And I felt that way because I would ask him, "Hey, when you mow the next time, can you just turn the mower the other way so the grass clippings go that way?" It's pretty simple. It's not that difficult, and sometimes grass clippings get in there anyway. I get that. But he was definitely purposely mowing so that the grass clippings would go into the gardens. And then I was not appreciative of him mowing the lawn if I mentioned that he did that. And in fact, he would tell me to mow the lawn myself then if I, had a problem with the way that he was doing it. The plausible deniability piece is that he could say, "Oh, I didn't even notice," or "I wasn't trying to do that," because it's one of those things where you could kind of say that, except for that if you see that it happens over and over and over again, then you're outside of the realm of plausible deniability. You're definitely doing it on purpose. Another thing that he did if I told anybody this story, it was like, "Really? Are you sure that happened?" I'm like, "I know this happened. It's just one of probably 1,000 plus examples." Um, But one day we were both going to the same place, but he was leaving before me. I was trying to get some things done at the house, and then I knew I had to jump into the shower and I was going to be like cutting it close. So I put my clothes and my boots in the bathroom, did my stuff around the house, jumped in the shower. I get out of the shower and that's when I realized my boots aren't there. That Christmas, just prior to this happening, my daughter had bought me, she's a teenager and she started working when she was 15. Super proud of her. And she bought me a pair of boots and they were, and he also bought me a pair of boots. The boots that she bought me were much more, from my perspective, everyday wear type of boots because they had great tread on the bottom. They were kind of like a little more like badass, like with buckles, and zippers, whatever. I just really liked the badassery of them. And so they were sort of an everyday wear type boot, whereas the ones that he had gotten me were a little more for, from my perspective, when you're going to dress up, and some people wear those all the time. I just don't. But if I'm trying to be like extra cute, I'll wear those boots. Anyway, he was upset apparently that I wasn't wearing the boots that he got me for Christmas enough. So he took the boots out of the bathroom and hid them in his side of the closet. It was later, and I knew the boots were in there. I knew for a fact it wasn't one of those times where I was questioning myself. Do I remember this correctly? I have a bunch of kids, two dogs, a house. Am I recalling this correctly? Questioning myself. This particular time, I'm not questioning myself. I know that the boots were in there. And then later I came to find them in his side of the closet. And later the conversation happened where it was, in fact, he did say he was yeah, upset that I wasn't wearing the boots that he had gotten me for Christmas as much as he would have liked. So it was things like that that sort of you like, who does that? You would like literally say to yourself, who does that? Not emotionally stable people. They don't do that. They may say, "Hey, what's up with those? Did you not like that style?" Yada yada yada. Let me get to know you more and your preferences more. So the next time I go shopping, maybe I'll pick something else out, right? Like that's what we try to do when we want to give a gift that makes someone happy. We don't take things and hide them on people. No one does that. Um, and there was another time as well where when we were breaking up, and so many things happened during this time, but this stands out to me because we were not, at this point, we were definitely going to separate, but we were both still in the house. I was in the spare bedroom. We had not had words. We had not been arguing. And I went next door to hang out with a friend of mine, became friends with a neighbor, just hang out with her and chat with her and just hang out for a little bit. I came home and he had locked the door to the spare bedroom and I didn't have the key to get in, and he is well aware of the fact that I am very allergic. I wash my bedding on hot once a week to kill dust mites. So he knows that I can't just go and sleep anywhere. And so it was like, not only am I locking the door to this particular situation, this spot where you sleep, but I'm also going to put you in a situation where you're going to have to sleep somewhere where you will probably end up with a migraine the next day, or the different, ways that I would feel if I were having, a dust mite allergy attack. So it was like extra layers of, and he actually, at one point, when I would bring these things up, and I said, this, and this, and he said, yeah, they're called FUs. And it was a major eureka moment for me because I realized that for the course of 20 years of marriage, I was dealing with someone who really did intentionally try to mess with me on a regular basis. It wasn't by mistake. It was absolutely on purpose. And he was absolutely trying to um, derive pleasure from my pain. So, I guess some of the things that I learned during the course of this, well, I'll start with, how my being on the journey helped me deal with this because it's really probably the biggest piece that I'm super, super thankful for. I learned how to go into neutral observation. And I remember the first time that I did it. And so neutral observation is when you take your energy out of a situation. So a lot of people say this, and I feel that this is the case that emotions are energy in motion. And so in order to stop that motion of your energy, which would feed into a situation, you pull your emotions back. So now I'm in neutral observation. I did that for a couple weeks, and anything that came to me, whether it's from my kids, my husband, it didn't matter. I was not responding emotionally. I just said, this is neither good nor bad. This just is, right? It's like a present moment, be present in the moment um, strategy. And also a strategy for sort of making sure that your emotions are not enmeshed with the situation. And what I felt like I got out of that was what I call clean data points. They were data points about the inputs that were going into some of these situations that I would not have seen as clearly as I would have if my emotions were a factor. I pulled those back and I was able to look at things and see things what I felt like were what they were way better. And this is one strategy that is amazing for really being able to choose your response versus reacting to situations. So generally, I would say I have become, uh, almost masterful at pulling my emotions back and allowing things to sort of happen, not labeling them as good or bad, and then choosing my response, which is a much, man, the peace that comes from being able to choose your response. Um, versus reacting, so you're not taking your emotions and feeding them into this, maybe like a fire that's started by someone or something going on, right? Like you don't like feed the flame, you actually hold that fuel back and really determine, is it time to feed the flame, is it time to extinguish the flame? Is like, what do I do here? And so it's really such a critical piece, neutral observation. It's such a critical piece to having peace and harmony in your life, truly. Um, and I just have some notes here. Uh, oh, another thing is that it actually does help to also declutter your mind because you're not constantly trying to parse through, you're not trying to take what became enmeshed and pull it apart to see it. You already have it apart, you can see it already. You don't have to do the extra work of trying to figure out what all of that was, and it's actually a beautiful thing. And it's one of the ways that I was truly able to see that he was smiling and enjoying inflicting pain on me. And so obviously that's critical because there's just no way that you can continue to operate in a place where someone is trying to inflict pain on you. Another critical piece that I'll say was part of my journey was actually finding what I would say is just an amazing, amazing podcast called Surviving Narcissism. I'll link, I'll just pick a video, one of the videos that this doctor puts out, I think PhD puts out. And ultimately, I received confirmation that that was really a good place to go from three of my children had the same therapist um, over, during the course of different. Sorry about that. I hit the microphone, which I have a mixer too, guys, and I realized I had the wrong settings, but I'll finish what I'm saying. Anyway, so that therapist, one day I was talking about one of um, it was kind of closing out like having her as a therapist essentially, and so we could have, I think that was already closed out. Some we were talking about billing or something, I'm not sure, but anyway, I said something like, I think he might be a narcissist, and I was pretty sure, but I'm talking to a therapist. I'm not going to say what so I said, I think he might be a narcissist, and she said, like did this laugh, and said, "You think?" And she said, "I don't tell people to go to YouTube because there's a lot of garbage on there generally." She said, "But that is the one podcast that I tell people to go to um so that they can parse through some of whatever is going on in their lives to determine if they're in fact dealing with a narcissist." And finally, what I'll say that I've learned, and which is sort of a compilation of different experiences, is that evil contains within it the seeds of its own destruction. And that may sound like a very dramatic statement to make. I understand that narcissists are typically made by their environments, but when you're on the other end of a narcissist, it truly doesn't matter how it is that they became that person at this point. Your priority or my priority was to myself. And what I feel like I've seen through various different situations and circumstances and things that I've worked through, is that evil really does contain within it the seed of its own destruction. No one has to, you just, pull your energy back and let someone else be exactly who they are. And what will happen will happen. Another thing is boundaries. A lot of people talk about the ego as if it's this awful thing. And if you're running around sort of egotistical and self serving, then that side of your ego is blown up and exaggerated. And yes, that can actually really impact other people very negatively. However, the ego does serve a purpose for people. And one of the purposes is to protect who you are, who you are as a person. And one of those strategies is using boundaries. So boundaries are great when you figure out, hey, listen, this is exactly what's triggering me about this situation, or this is what you're doing that I'm not comfortable with, et cetera, et cetera. You can institute boundaries with people. Let's say they're people that someone, let's say it's someone that you love, and you still want to try to have a relationship with that person, but you're going to share with them what your boundary is. And if they honor that boundary, then you guys can have a relationship. If they don't honor the boundary, it's so incredibly important for us to say, you're not honoring my boundaries or my boundary, whatever I set up with you. If it's a trend, and it may be a boundary that it's non-negotiable, it's violated once and you're done, cool, whatever, it's your boundary, you get to determine what the parameters are for your boundary. If it's multiple boundaries, it's multiple boundaries. If it's one boundary and you give the person multiple opportunities to honor your boundary, it's entirely up to you. But the fact of the matter is that you're loving yourself enough to say, hey, listen, this actually causes a problem for my heart or triggers me in some way. Wherever you are with regard to managing your triggers. So, hey, listen, I have to have this boundary at this point. If someone cares about you and they love you and they're not out of their minds, they will honor your boundary and you can go on to have a nice relationship in general. If they can't, I would strongly say it is okay to say, you're not honoring my boundary or boundaries. Sayonara. Finally, or I'm close to finally, one of the other things that I've realized is that um, fear So, a lot of people say fear is the opposite of love, and I agree with that. As we all know, we can kind of love and hate at the same time because you love something about someone, but there are things that you hate, or vice versa. Love and hate happen to be on the spectrum, the opposite ends of the same, um, I would say the same emotion, right? So it's on the same spectrum. There's one spectrum, and you're hitting that polarity on either side. So those two things can coexist because they can both live there. They're on that spectrum. But when you're in fear, which is where narcissists put you, they put you in survival mode. They put you in fear that of, will I have peace in my heart? Will I be attacked again? Will I be? So you're constantly living in this sort of fight or flight mode. And it's a very fearful place. When I found when with that, it was actually harder to maintain a heart space. I'm a loving person, but I was operating in survival mode, and really not able to nurture myself and fill my cup or have my cup filled the way that I needed it to, because love and fear could not live within my heart at the same time. So, with that, I would say if you're listening to this and that resonates with you, I would just say be fearless so that you can have that love in your heart. Be fearless to set up your boundaries and be fearless in knowing that despite however someone came to be a narcissist, it has to be not your problem at some point, or your problem to the most minimal way possible, so that you can get back to loving yourself, so that you can get back to healing. Um, and finally, and this is a hugely important piece. I hear this and it bothers me to no end. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, narcissists prey on empaths, which they do, I'm sure. But for empaths, it immediately puts you in this mode of being an empath must be bad because I couldn't pick this person out of I couldn't pick this person out of the crowd and stay away from them. I actually happen to be on the other end of a narcissist, so therefore something must be wrong with me with regard to being an empath. And I will say, there is nothing wrong with you. I have learned that about myself. There is nothing wrong with me being a loving, compassionate person who happens to be able to pick up on other people's energy. The most loving and compassionate people generally are feeling other people's energy. And so when people are hurting, people are in pain, it's usually the empaths that are the ones who sort of rush to the aid of those people, because they can feel that they're in pain and they have, they have love in their hearts. And so I would say, please, if you're an empath, please do not take shame on yourself. Please do not take blame on yourself. Um, I had to learn this, and it's been a big deal for me because I always wanted to have an open heart space as much as possible. I never wanted to let anybody, so, beat me down to the point where I wouldn't be able to live in the world with, with a loving heart. And so please don't let anyone, um, continue to hammer your heart or make you feel shame or blame. Please consider getting on your journey to having healthy boundaries, respecting yourself, loving yourself, and recognizing that, you're in this situation, but you can get out of it. And it may seem insurmountable, but it's not. It's step by step. And that's what I did. It was step by step. And I also was dealing with a ton of health issues. And I can tell you that, getting out of this negative energy, the negative energy space of people who don't care about how you feel, is so healing. You can actually heal from illness, and your heart heals, and you can have more peace and harmony in your life. I do. And really, that's what I want for you too. So I'll leave it there. I'll put some videos or some links for songs and the link to my first video, which was my first try out of the gate. So Maybe hang in there for all the times that I said, and maybe a little bit of a slow start, but I think I'm getting more comfortable with this. But definitely check out that video if you feel compelled to, with regard to getting started on your journey. And I'll just close with, I love you. I love you. I'm getting better at this. I love you. Talk to you later.